town of York boasts a rich history dating back to Roman times and has been the site of numerous significant archaeological excavations over the years, yielding a wealth of artifacts. One of the most unusual yet highly informative finds is York's renowned Viking poop fossil, known as the Lloyd's Bank coprolite. Now, why is this dejection so noteworthy for us? Actually, for some very good reasons. This is a huge piece of fossilized human feces. Surprisingly, the York Viking poop fossil has provided more insight into the town's history than almost any other artifact unearthed there. Discovered in 1972 during the construction of a new branch on Pavement Street in England, the Lloyd's Bank coprolite is exactly what it sounds like, a massive chunk of fossilized poop. As construction began on the new branch's foundation, the workmen unearthed a variety of Viking artifacts. Work was halted and the team of archaeologists was brought in to sift through the muck. Among the finds was this massive coprolite measuring 20 centimeters long and 5 centimeters wide, believed to be the largest example of individual fossilized human feces or paleofeces ever discovered. Dating back to the 9th century AD, it is an extraordinarily well-preserved piece of Viking excrement. The Scandinavian history of York, by the way, begins with the great heathen army led by Ivar the Boneless, or Ivar in Beinlausi in Old Norse, and his brother Halfdan Ragnarsson, which made its way north to Northumbria, where the Anglo-Saxons were embroiled in a civil war. In 862, the ruler of Northumbria, Osberh, had been deposed by Ella of Northumbria, thus Ivar the Boneless was able to take advantage of the Anglo-Saxon disarray and captured York in 866-67. What followed are decades of Norse and Anglo-Saxon rulers disputing the kingdom. Anyway, York sits atop a layer of ancient trash approximately 3 meters deep, composed mainly of biological matter such as leather, wood, bone, various types of cloth, and significant amounts of human waste. Typically, this material decays quickly, leaving behind a largely useless mulch for archaeologists. However, York's waterlogged and oxygen-free soil has preserved much of the centuries-old waste remarkably well. Nearly a third of this 3-meter layer of preserved biological matter is thought to consist of human and animal waste. The York Viking poop fossil is a solid individual piece, unlike the large masses typically found at the bottom of communal latrines. Such piles are less useful to paleoscatologists, essentially poop archaeologists, because they allow only generalized assumptions about the group as a whole. In contrast, individual coprolites like this one provide detailed insights and can be more informative than many other artifacts from the time. We know the fossil dates back to the 9th century and offers a wealth of information about the daily life of a typical Norseman in York, as well as the specific individual who produced it. Analysis of the Lloyd's Bank coprolite reveals that this Viking's diet consisted largely of meat and grains such as bran, even though other excavated materials such as fruit, stones, nutshells, and vegetable matter like leek remains indicates a more varied diet among the general population. The coprolite's length and weight, half a pound or 227 grams, and lack of pits and seeds suggest that this Viking likely suffered from severe constipation and was probably not the healthiest in the village. This fossil thus provides a unique glimpse into the dietary habits and health issues of an individual Viking, illustrating the broader conditions of life in York during that era. Now, for the next detail, you may want to stop eating unless you want it crawling back up. A significant number of moorworm and whipworm eggs were also discovered in the poop. Ascaris lumbricoides, a parasitic worm, infested our ancestors' bodies, boring through tissue and occasionally emerging from various orifices, including the corners of the eyes. The stuff of nightmares, really. Trichuris nematodes, or whipworms, were also present and could infest the gut in the hundreds. Dr. Andrew Jones, who led the investigation of this coprolite, noted that the largest infestation he had encountered was 3,000 worms. These parasites were a common part of everyday life. Children would pass them, people would cough them up, and they were especially prevalent at the end of people's lives. This finding illuminates the widespread nature of parasitic diseases in Europe before the introduction of flush toilets in the early 20th century. Considering the horrendous Dracunculus nematodes which burst out of blisters, it's intriguing to ponder whether such cruel manifestations on human bodies could have maybe influenced Viking art as well, known for its intricate coils and rivets. Just a thought. This is typical for Viking poop, reinforcing what we know about Viking living standards. They were quite filthy, and gut parasites were a common issue. The presence of these parasitic eggs supports the widely held view that hygiene was not really the priority. Yeah, sure, we have a lot of evidence they groomed their hair and beards. I also made a video about that, check it out, and you'll be surprised how many combs have been found. Nonetheless, by our standards, it is still an incredibly filthy world. Over 30 years ago, Dr. Andrew Jones had the coprolite appraised for insurance purposes. It was valued at just $39,000. Jones found this valuation surprisingly low for such a rare artifact, and he told the Wall Street Journal back in the day that it's really insulting because this is the most exciting piece of excrement he had ever seen. In its own way, it is as irreplaceable as the crown jewels, I quote. At the end of the day, the material worth of the York Viking poop fossil isn't really that important. The Jorvik Viking Center is never going to sell it, and no amount of money could replace a 1,000-year-old poop if it were ever lost. Its true value lies in the fascinating insights it provides into Viking life in York, in England, 1,200 years ago. More recently, thanks to technology, you can even smell it. I like to imagine that somewhere in the afterlife in Valhall, a Viking is feeling immensely proud of their gigantic poop and the fact that, well, hundreds of years later, people are still examining it. Actually, I wonder if Odin's warriors had stomach troubles as well, since the only things they were feeding on seem to have been pork and meat. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As usual, this was Irina. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and feel free to check my other videos as well. Till next time.